He's not ready. He's just a fifth-round pick. If he was ready, they'd play him? That's what you've been hearing, right? From analysts, coaches, and media insiders, all repeating the same script. But what if that phrase, "he's not ready," doesn't mean what you think it means? What if there's a deeper message behind it? One that has nothing to do with Shedeur's talent, but everything to do with culture, control, and power inside the NFL. At PsyOps Sports, we study the psychology behind the game, the hidden layers of organizational behavior that shape what we see and what we're told. The word PsyOps comes from psychological operations, but here it simply means understanding the game behind the game. We don't tell you what to believe in, we just expose the behavioral patterns that drive professional sports. And the case of Shedeur Sanders is one of the most fascinating examples we've seen in years. In the NFL, you're not just drafting arm strength, accuracy, or stats. You're drafting behavior, you're drafting control, and sometimes you're drafting the narrative itself. Let's be clear, Shedeur Sanders can play, quick release, smooth pocket presence, high football IQ, but scouts don't just watch film, they watch habits, tone, and humility. When Colorado's coordinator Pat Shurmur joked about how much freedom Shedeur had in calling plays, many inside the league didn't laugh. They saw a young quarterback with unfiltered autonomy, one who might question NFL authority before earning his stripes. In a league built on hierarchy, autonomy without hierarchy looks less like confidence and more like defiance. Reporters asked about sacks, about holding the ball too long, about drifting too deep in the pocket. The response? Maybe the receiver ran the wrong route. Deion Sanders never criticized his son publicly. To fans, that was loyalty. To scouts, it was insulation. They saw a quarterback shielded from consequence, never visibly coached hard, never corrected on camera. In NFL circles, that reads as a control risk, a player raised in a bubble of yes men and cameras, not hard coaching and accountability. Then came the tweets. Deion declared he'll be a top 5 pick. Where your son going? It wasn't arrogance, it was assertion. A father protecting his son and a brand protecting itself. But to NFL executives, it was noise. And the league doesn't like competing with noise. They saw a player with his own media network, his own narrative, and a father who already knew the commissioner personally. For teams used to controlling every storyline, that's not partnership. That's power they can't manage. In the language of sports psychology, image is leverage and control is currency. When the league believes a player or family is ungovernable, it doesn't issue statements. It sends messages through silence or through the draft board. Sliding in the draft isn't always about ability. Sometimes it's a behavioral adjustment, a reminder of who really sets the narrative. You may own the clicks, but we own the picks. Now, let's talk about what's happening today. When analysts and reporters say, Shedeur isn't ready, what if that has nothing to do with his play? You'll hear the same line repeated over and over again. Coaches just want to win. If he were the better player, he'd be on the field. That's the narrative. The easy answer the public will accept. But behind closed doors, readiness isn't always about mechanics or decision making. Sometimes it's about culture, control, and fit. What they're really saying might sound more like this. He's not ready for us. He's not ready for our system, our expectations, or our hierarchy. They may not be questioning his talent, they're questioning his alignment, his independence, his voice, his way of operating, because when an athlete brings his own platform, his own media, and his own message, the organization no longer owns the full narrative. And for some franchises, that's a threat to control. So the public hears he's not ready. But inside the building, it may really mean he's not yet conditioned for our culture. That's not about winning. That's about power management. And that's why you'll see coaches, analysts, and media insiders echo the same line across every network and every local outlet. It's not analysis, it's alignment. A synchronized effort to control perception before perception controls them. Shedeur Sanders is a special case. He's not just a quarterback, he's a brand, a business, and a son of one of the most influential figures in modern sports. And when a player enters the league with that kind of energy and influence, the rules quietly change. What's publicized as readiness is often just the league's way of managing narrative risk. With special circumstances come special rules that aren't written, aren't discussed, and aren't fair, but they exist. There's also a deeper layer: race, power, and image. A confident young black quarterback, coached by his father, owning his platform, and speaking his truth. That challenges the NFL's invisible hierarchy. Deion Sanders didn't wait for validation. He built his own media, his own audience, his own power. And in a system where image equals control, that makes people uncomfortable. When confidence meets corporate control, the result isn't always applause. Sometimes it's correction, sometimes it's containment. This isn't about skill, it's about psychology. Scouts saw the numbers, but they also saw the posture, the body language, the shrug after sack. They watched a quarterback who'd been protected from public critique and wondered, how will he respond when he's no longer protected? When the shield, not his father, is in charge? That's not hate. That's behavioral evaluation. In the NFL, a team doesn't just draft your arm, it drafts your emotional control, your narrative discipline, and your willingness to submit to the system. Maybe Shedeur's draft slide wasn't about talent at all. Maybe it was the league's quiet way of reminding everyone. No player, no brand, and no family narrative sits higher than the shield. Because in the NFL, every pick is a psychological choice. Every slide, a statement. And every family that dares to own its story reminds the league just how fragile control really is. This analysis is for behavioral and organizational insight only. PsyOps Sports does not promote or attack any individual or team. If this gave you a new way to see the game behind the game, share this message and subscribe to PsyOps Sports. Because understanding the why behind sports is how we all start seeing the truth beyond the scoreboard.